G'day, I'm Mark from Self Sufficient Me, and today we're going to go through my water tank. Well, I'm not going to go through it, we're just going to talk about it, and particularly how I grow some stuff vertically on it. This video was requested by Shabby Rose 1, so hello, and it was a great idea. I'm going to enjoy doing this video because there's nothing better than growing stuff in small places. Now I might have an acreage here, but I've got my water tank that's actually a water source, so the water doesn't have to come very far to water my plants. Plus the tank is near my main vegetable garden and it's close to my house, so it makes sense to grow things on it. Otherwise it's just basically a bare wall with water inside it, and it's really wasting a good resource. I try to grow things that are fairly hardy, things like most herbs, even strawberries, those types of hardy fruits. Chilies are another good thing. Spring onions, they grow quite well in pots with a fair bit of sun on them. I try to grow those type of crops on my water tank rather than any real lush vegetable crops that need a little bit of love and care. So a bit about my tank. It's a bore-fed tank, although the water pretty well is quite fresh. It's just like an underground tank here. The bore's shallow. The mineral content in it is quite low, and I love using it for watering plants because it doesn't have any chlorine in it for a start, so it's got less chemicals. Yeah, it's pretty good for microorganisms in the garden and the plants themselves. I also use this space as a holding area for other pots and plants that I haven't got around to planting yet, and little trees. I put them at the bottom of the tank, and that gets the water. It's a nice sunny spot, especially through winter, where I can store and keep my little trees before I go and plant them out. It's got an irrigation system on it, just a small one that runs around the top, and then it loops back and it goes to my little propagation area, and so everything is watered evenly. It's just a spray one. It's nice and simple. The actual mesh that's holding the pots on the tank is some scrap mesh, Rio concreting mesh that they use for concreting. You know, the stuff they stick there and then they pour the concrete on top of it so that makes the concrete nice and strong. Well, that type of mesh is really good to work with. I've got it throughout my garden. It's damn cheap. If you want to go to the garden centre and buy some trellising material, you can get very similar stuff that looks nice and pretty, but it'll cost you 4 to 6 times as much as going to the concreting joint and asking for some Rio concreting mesh. It's a really good economical way. But on this tank here, what I do is I just bend the top of the mesh over, and it's just seated on the tank. So the top, probably 12 inches, is turned over, 12 inches or less. And it's then I mould it into the tank around the corners. So I just bend it into shape, and then I've bent the tops over. You need to have a tool or a bar to bend the Rio mesh because it's quite strong. And once it's bent into shape, then it just sits on top of the tank, and it doesn't need to be tied there, because once the pots get on there and there's a bit of weight, it actually weighs itself against the tank and it won't move. As far as how I secure the pots and that on there goes, I just use those normal steel or aluminium pot holders with the loop in the back. They're about $2 or $3 each. They're really cheap ones, and they're the main ones. And because pots tend to dry out quite fast, especially in the middle of the sun, and small pots, I like to use the medium-sized pots. So I think they're at least a 10-inch or so, and then I put them in their steel holders, and then I attach them. I just hang them on the Rio mesh on one of the runs, and so on many of them, so that they don't sit on an angle, too much of an angle, I just put a little block of scrap wood behind the bottom of them, and I just zip tie that on to the Rio mesh, and then the pots are more upright. On the other side, I've just used planter boxes, and I've just bent the planter boxes rear metal hangers back the other way so that it sits on the tank nicely. And they're a good cheap way to put pot plants and hang things from this tank. If you want to know any more about the tank, please give me a message below and we'll talk about it there. feel free to join our forum, selfsufficientculture.com, where you can chat there as well and make up a thread and we can talk about things there. So I hope, Shabby Rose Wine, that gave you a little bit of an insight into the tank and how I grow things on it. Thanks for the idea for the video, and thank you all very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks a lot. Bye for now.